Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Now, I'm just going to say this because I don't know if this is going to be something that remedies by the time this episode comes out, because my latest YouTube videos have been doing this thing where it's like, for the first day or so, they don't do that hot, and then they start steadily gaining popularity with the few coming days. But some might be up because I did a poll to coincide with the video's release, and the poll has gotten significantly more traction than the video itself, and I'm just like, that's a little weird. I released a poll, it literally is, the video I made was a video about copyright and Hitler, and and I made a poll to coincide with it, basically mocking, the thing is, people are just looking at the poll and be like, the poll is a little biased. Guys, you know there's a video that coincides with this, right? This is supposed to coincide with a video. You know this, right? A lot of them are literally anti, that this is just a poll that I just randomly released out of nowhere, and they're just like, why is this poll so, lopsided? It's because there's a video I made that's specifically made to coincide with the, I don't know if it's just because I put Hitler in the thumbnail and title. Maybe YouTube's shadow banning me, I don't know, but it could be also because I'm A/B testing this video, because I had 3 titles I thought would be interesting for the video, and maybe was it a bad idea to fucking do that? I mean, I guess if I had to end my video, I guess the sad truth is, I guess my video hot streak had to end because my videos were doing at least somewhat good. Wikipedia being good got 2K views, Smiling Friends video got 3K views, then 2K views with the two-party system video. Then, I guess the streak had to end at some point. But yeah, with that out of the way, let's get right into the news. First news story is coming from Mexico, and a very big thing happened in Mexico that is leading to a lot of questions. And basically, here's what happened. So, 2 CIA agents were killed in Mexico, particularly in the state of Chihuahua. And they were involved in a counter-narcotics operation prior to their deaths. I think if I remember correctly, the story said they were in a vehicle and their brakes got cut or something like that. And in the news, it became a news story in America. It was 2 of our beloved CIA agents were murdered in Mexico. That's so sad. But in Mexico, it became a news story because Claudia Sheinbaum said, why are these guys here? I did not authorize this. Pointing out how Mexico and America do have they do have a relationship where, sometimes American agents go to Mexico and, it's just kind of general allyship where intelligence agencies sometimes share information with each other, sometimes they go around with each other, that kind of stuff. But she's like, I'm supposed to know about this stuff, and these 2 specific people I did not know. There was no information about this that was on my desk. I had no clue about this. And Caroline Leavitt tried to immediately shift the goalposts. But this is a good thing because and she's like, oh no, hold on, shut the fuck up, you stupid bitch. Why are there CIA agents in my fucking place that I have no idea about? And moreover, Governor of Chihuahua, I got some questions for you. Because as of late, the pre and the pan have just gotten very explicit about the fact that they just do not want Mexico to have autonomy. This is just one of the big, beautiful things about the Latin American right wing at this point. They used to pretend to not just be tools of the United States, but it's just weird. Now they're just openly just saying they are tools of the United States. That's just the fact. The subject of the video will also kind of give you that understanding, but they all truly just don't believe in their own nations having autonomy anymore. That's just a fact. Like Javier Milei, Nayib Bukele, fucking Nasri Asfuera, all these people, they just don't believe their nation should have autonomy anymore. They just genuinely believe that their nation should be subsidiaries to the fucking United States. If you remember, Javier Milei's entire plan was literally make the Argentinian economy completely reliant on America. Sure, he's famous for his, afuera, 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 cutting all their, government agencies, but, the U.S. bails them out. Of course, we all know that. Famous, fucking billions and billions dollar bailout that happened with Argentina, but also just because like literally the entire purpose is like Javier Milei's plan is literally to just dollarize the Argentinian economy. He just wants to make he abolishes the central bank of Argentina, the thing that centralizes Argentina's economy and makes Argentina's economy itself a self-sufficient thing, and now makes it so that he wants to make it so that the Central Bank of America is the one that the Argentine economy is based on. And in this case, Claudia Sheinbaum is just pointing out the fact, again, it's just unironically just a fact. Like, I've seen, like, pre-politicians just openly state they want American intervention in Latin America. They want America to invade Mexico. They just openly say this. And since the governor of Chihuahua is a member of the PAN, Claudia Sheinbaum's, again, raising questions. Like, again, why is this mysterious CIA figures in an opposition, like, governor's office? Why is this going on? And naturally, the PRIAN in Chihuahua refused to allow Claudia Sheinbaum to even remotely, discuss. And this is the thing. They know they're fucked because, the governor of Chihuahua has just stated, she's not going to take any questions from the media. It's like, she knows she's fucked. Like, they're actually fucked. And it's with this point I have to dust off the old hashtag, hands off Mexico, hands off Mexico, hands off Mexico. Hands off all of Latin America, but in this specific case, hands off Mexico. Let's move on to the next story, which is a depressing news story and a very draconian news story and a thing that is bad, very bad. So apparently, Homeland Security is making smart glasses for ICE agents to collect information on every single American. They're claiming that it's because they want to automatically identify illegal aliens from a distance, but again, how are you supposed to tell someone's an illegal immigrant? Through glasses, through a camera. How are you supposed to determine that? All of this, of course, obviously coinciding with the rise of Palantir, with the rise of the obvious, massive American surveillance state that's coming up. This is gonna be fucking terrible, but, hopefully, I don't know, man. I just don't know, man. I mean, if we're getting to this is a fucking, boys, what do we do now? Man, it sure would be a shame if we are able to reverse engineer those glasses and use them for our own purposes. Nah, that's crazy. You can never do that. No. And yeah, I definitely don't want the people who have been known to fucking rape multiple people and their fucking Gestapo camps to have access to a fucking camera on their face to video record things. I would definitely fuck off. This is just. Yeah, that's just a fucking bad news story. I'm just going to link that news story because I don't want to talk about this no more. I want to talk about other things. Let's talk about a couple of news stories regarding, so apparently Donald Trump is getting revenge for the KKK for investigating this. They're apparently starting an investigation into the Southern Poverty Law Center and claiming that they are committing fraud. And I just saw the news story, they're saying that they're committing fraud, and I was just yeah, that's just fucking obviously bullshit. But it turns out it's, even more bullshit, because what they're claiming is fraud is the fact that the Southern Poverty Law Center sometimes uses, their efforts to launch a shell company to basically, basically they use it to infiltrate white supremacist spaces to get the information that they need to, talk about the white supremacists and stuff. And they're basically making a claim that, the Southern Poverty Law Center is actually secretly fundraising the KKK. And they're claiming that this is some kind of fraud because this is clearly not what the Southern Poverty Law Center is made for, or their funders are actually donating to. So they're clearly making fraud. This is clearly fraud. And then it's literally most of the donors are saying, no, we literally paid specifically to do this thing. This is what this organization is known for. We're giving them money specifically to do this. Because that's the fucking point. It's an investigative organization that's one of the main points of it. They investigate hate groups and they fucking they investigate fucking hate groups, and I think it's basically the entrapment argument in a lot of these kind of cases where it's basically you have to let them do all of the illegal action. You can't tell you can't tell them to do the illegal action, but the person has to actually talk about the illegal action, and then you just have to listen to it. It's if you're doing a pedophile investigation, you don't pretend to be you don't try to instigate those guys to do it. You just wait for those guys to do it, which is something that has led to a lot of these creeps who get caught to literally just walk free because the amateur investigators just don't know how to do this part. But that's the thing about the Southern Poverty Law Center and, the Trump administration going after them. They're not going after them because they're doing anything wrong. They're doing it because they're doing it right. Like, the fact that the Southern Poverty Law Center is infiltrating these organizations and getting information is the problem. And that's why they're investigating them. And that's why they're trying to get them, taken down. And this is going to shift to other organizations that try to advocate for civil rights. I wouldn't be surprised if they go after the ACLU at one point, but they've already made it clear that their next target is going to be the Anti-Defamation League, which is funny considering the Anti-Defamation League has basically spent all their time bending over backwards to basically be like, look, guys, I know Elon Musk said Heil Hitler one time, but come on! I know Trump called Jews spankers an evil Shakespearean villain, but come on! The real problem is Pepe the Frog. Yeah, whatever. Anyways, let's move on to the next story. The Trump FCC wants input on whether transgender and gender non-binary TV program is appropriate for children. So, shockingly, Project 985 is being done. The FCC is pushing for more of their, again, it's the FCC doing what Project 985 told them they were going to do. Project 985 was literally to make the FCC more controlling over the American media industry. And that's 100% what is happening. That's what's been happening. That is what is continuing to happen. And again, we're just sitting there idly by and just watching it happen. Like, we've seen them cancel shows that are expressed any criticism of Donald Trump. We've seen them approve mergers with Trump-backed families to make sure that media industries get more and more consolidated. It's just, again, just so abundantly obvious what is happening. And again, I just gotta say it again. I'm sorry, guys, but I just gotta say it. Yes, you should have voted for Kamala Harris. I'm sorry, guys. You just had... I don't want to be that kind of guy, but, you just had... I'm sorry, you had to. This is a thing that was explicitly stated that was going to happen. And if you guys aren't going to sit up and do anything about it, then you should have fucking voted for Kamala Harris. Yes, should she have done anything different to be a better person, to be a better candidate, to be a better fucking president? Whatever? Yes, absolutely. 100%. No one is debating that. No one is debating that Kamala Harris was a shitty, fucking, disgusting, useless candidate who was gonna do nothing but just be a fucking stupid shill, be a stupid cunt. Nobody argues against that. Nobody's arguing against that. Do you hear anybody arguing against that? Huh? What? Who? Huh? What? Nobody's disagreeing. Still should have voted for her anyways. I'm sorry, guys. You're not doing that. You're not doing this shit. This strategy is a failure. Ernst Thälmann is a piece of shit who is a fucking useless person. Don't idolize him. He is a fucking loser. But the Social Democrats killed Rosa Luxemburg. Don't care. This is the most honest sense. I genuinely don't care. Also funny to note that they neglect the part where she tried to literally overthrow the government, and that's why she was killed. She wasn't just randomly killed by the Social Democrats. She was killed because she was fucking trying to do a revolution. It's yeah, what did you think was gonna happen? What the fuck did you guys think was gonna happen? And as I mentioned in the previous podcast, if you guys genuinely believe revolution is the way to go, then you guys should be fully ready to accept the consequences if you lose and get caught. You guys should fully be embracing that. Rosa Luxemburg, she knew the consequences. She did it anyways because she felt that was the route. She did that, and she accepted and got the consequences. I'm just saying, there are two worlds in front of us. One where 6 million Jews die, and tons of other people die in World War II, and Rosa Luxemburg. Or one where Rosa Luxemburg is the only casualty. I know which road I'm choosing. And when there's ensuing battles like that in the future, I will make those same choices again. Your road led to the Holocaust, my road leads to no Holocaust. Anyway, speaking of the FCC and, badness, let's move on to some good news kind of related to that. So, one of the other aspects about this, as I mentioned in the previous part, was that there's been a lot of media mergers that have been proposed and trying to be pushed through. And one of them is the mergers of the two news media organizations, Nexstar and Tenga. And, as it turns out, apparently, North Carolina Attorney General Jeff Jackson has actually been leading the charge to freeze their merger. And, so far, he has succeeded. There's going to be future deliberations about this case, but so far it seems that they're going in a good route. I was not aware of your game. I guess I just wanted to say some good news. Anyways, let's move on to some bad news. A gay dad has been charged with a felony after being tricked into a fake homophobic right-wing interview. You may have seen this news story, but it's just an interesting one that happened. So basically, there was two gay dads, and they were like with their kid, and then they were like doing an interview. Like they were walking in the street, and then some fucking guy went up to them, pretended to be CNN, and decided that was going to do an interview with them. And what ended up happening was the guy basically just flat out just started like saying like fucking like insane bullshit stuff to them. The closet case Riley Niemi went up to them and basically was like, did you know that the gay men are likely to molest children? And then, of course, the gay dads didn't like to be publicly accused of being pedophiles, so one of them pushed him, and allegedly, Niemi has claimed that he even went so far as to follow him and then beat him up more. And then went so far as to continue making posts, be like, he started crying about it, like, just another death threat from the left. It's like, I'm just saying, if you're straight, put this on, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, bi, pan, or whatever. Like, just think about this. A man walks up to you with a camera and starts loudly accusing you with your child of being a child molester and a pedophile. Like they just start saying that on camera. They have a camera on, pointed at you, making the accusations that you are a child molester. Dude, you're lucky that he just pushed you. Genuinely, you are lucky that this man just pushed you. Like, I'm just saying, there was a story of a YouTube prankster who went up to a guy who was delivering food and was like going around and near him, like harassing him and annoying him. And that guy got fucking shot in the chest by the guy he was harassing. Johnny Somali did all this same shit in Korea, and he's in jail now, possibly facing the death penalty. And nobody is on their side. That's the thing. Nobody is on their side. Nobody likes to get harassed. It doesn't matter what your fucking political beliefs are. If some dude is approaching you with a camera, everybody has universally agreed. Those people are scum on this earth. But I guess legally it's still in the wrong, even though probably shouldn't be, because again, you came up and harassed them in public and publicly accused them of being a pedophile and child rapist. So, I'm just saying, in any other situation, nobody would have cared. Nobody would have given a shit that you got beat up. Anyways, next news story. It comes from Florida House race, specifically the one regarding Sheila Cherfilus-McCormick. For those who don't know, Sheila Cherfilus-McCormick, she was a member of the United States House of Representatives, and she basically got involved in politics or whatever. She ran against Alcee Hastings, and then Alcee Hastings retired. No, he didn't retire. He died. But that's actually somewhat relevant to the next news story. Anyways, Hastings died, and she was basically she was a perennial candidate that kept running in the races. So she basically fluked herself into getting into the United States House of Representatives, and basically ever since she became the United States House of Representatives, she basically this is a weird thing. She kind of pitched herself as a progressive-ish candidate, but then she just became a normie dem. It seems weird. She just decided to not only fade into the background in politics, but also just become an average dem, I guess. But then Sheila Cherfilus-McCormick also made a very interesting development and decided to be really fucking obnoxiously corrupt. Literally, I'm looking at the fucking wiki page on her just her wiki page. It literally says here, criminal information indicted, conspiracy to commit theft of government funds, conspiracy to commit money laundering times 7, conspiracy to make and receive straw donor contributions, making and receiving straw donor contributions, conspiracy to make false and fraudulent statements on tax return, aiding and insisting the false and fraudulent statement on tax return, making a false statement to a federal agency, concealment of a falsified of a record or document. It's just, again, she just became super, this is another weird thing. It's apparently, even to the point where one of her official portraits had a stolen, I don't know if it was stolen, but it was a thing that was purchased by stolen funds, and it's just weird. Again, it's just fucking weird. And she decided to copy Matt Gaetz and resign from Congress like a little bit before she was going to literally, here's what happened. She literally this is literally what happened with Matt Gaetz. Like, Matt Gaetz was under investigation, like they were holding hearings on him. And then what ended up happening is that right before the investigation was to be finished and be published, he announced that he was resigning from Congress. And right before they were going to do the hearing to whether or not they should even go so far as to expel her, because again, they're in the Congress is actually at a point where it's like they're actually like going on an expelling like spree ever since George DeSantis like did his fucking stupid thing. They've like been going like crazy in regards to expelling people, like, you know, like expelled like they're even like they were talking about expelling Swalwell, they're talking about expelling like Gonzalez, they're talking about expelling like Corey Mills. And Cherfilus-McCormick was also in the talks. Like, literally, it was like those, like, literally, they were like agreement. Like, it was basically a bipartisan agreement. Like, okay, we'll expel these two if you expel these two. Like, it was like, okay, we could probably deal with that. But this is the weirdest part about like the thing. Like, one thing if she like again like resigned and like, you know, just moved forward, because like that's what kind of the thing. It's a kind of like implication with like Swalwell's resignation. Like, with him resigning, I think the idea is like it's the same thing with Gaetz. Like, Gaetz, when he resigned, he literally resigned because it was like the idea was like since he resigned, the investigation would kind of like stop. But it's like, no, the investigation's still going to go on. It's just that, you know, it's going to be done slightly differently because you're no longer a member of the United States House of Representatives. And the same thing with Swalwell. Like, Swalwell is now going through his investigation, just no longer with the other things in regards to the United States House. But here's the weirdest part about this. Like, you know, normally when they do this, they try to, like, you know, one, get a different government job, or two, just do retirement or whatever. Like, I think Swalwell is basically just like, he's basically concluded that he's just kind of done. Meanwhile, we got other people like, you know, Matt Gaetz, who tried to, like, become the Attorney General. But Sheila Cherfilus-McCormick decided to announce that she was running for re-election anyways? Which is strange. Why would you... What? What? She's running for re-election despite not being the incumbent anymore. What? Whatever. But another problem that people have also been pointed out is that I think there's actually this thing where it's like the House members are actually kind of mad about this because like they like basically it was like Anthony DeSantos. What was his name? I forgot his name already. It was George Anthony DeValder Santos. That's why I said whatever the fuck I just said. But the point is, like, they, like, a lot of members of Congress are now officially being like, we kind of regret voting for his expulsion, because his expulsion was kind of like a little bit different. I think because it was a thing where it was like they didn't expel him for anything. Which is kind of weird because like even in that case, Sheila Cherfilus-McCormick, like her expulsion would make sense because she did this shit during the United States House. Like that was the thing that was like the controversy regarding like Anthony DeValder. Like all of his fraud stuff happened before he became the United States House of Representatives, I think. Or maybe he like briefly did it a little bit during the United States House or whatever. The point is, like, again, they kind of seem regretful. And also people are pointing out that this is a little bit like shaking up the like makeup of the United States House of Representatives, because the slim leads are now becoming even more slim and more whatever. Like they keep like dropping more and more. Especially when this thing happened. David Scott, Georgia Democrat, has died at age of 80. Now, this is definitely not a surprise, because David Scott was fucking... like, he was 100% dying up to... like, his death is actually, like, not at all surprising, at all. Like, literally. Like, David Scott... like, people... like, every single thing that was coming out about David Scott in this specific race and stuff was like, oh, it was like fucking terrible. Like, it was absolutely fucking like, wow. The fact that this, like, literally, it was like, he was like showing up to the house in a walker. He could barely like talk. He could barely comprehend conversations. He couldn't do any hearings. And people were found out due to his voting records. They found out that he had not voted in an election for the past like 6 years or so. The point is, again, like, it was just super obvious that he was dying and he was gone. He was fucking gone. And he was just sitting there because he just wanted to sit there until he died. This was so noticeable that he was like facing like 5 or so primary challenges already because they knew that he was just on his way out. Like, Scott is like in a lot of ways a really bad example of this for a lot of he's just an incredibly egregious example of this for a lot of reasons. Because like, here's one big one. Did you know that he is the only man to serve in this district? And this district has existed for over 20 years? This guy's been their only representative, which is emblematic of a larger problem. Like, I mean, but I just gotta say this. I mean, I just gotta say this at 100%. We need term limits now. Like, I'm just sorry. We need term limits now. I know some people are gonna be like, well, no, we don't need term limits. Shut up. You're wrong. It is like, no. Here's the system we have now. The system we have now is, this is literally the system. The system that we had in the United States was literally always this, that members of the politician class would graciously be like, we are going to be public servants for only a small amount of time, and then after our service is done, we will retire and leave. But that's not how it works anymore. That's obviously not how it works anymore. Career politicians are like super prevalent. That is the whole point in a lot of people's lives, to be career politicians. FDR ran for president 4 times, and then it was after that, people said, maybe we should rein in this power. Granted, of course, obviously, they reined in the power because they didn't want the fact that Roosevelt could just keep winning elections over and over again. But yes, at some point, Roosevelt had to not run anymore. Like, that's just a fact. And unfortunately, in the current system we have, the current system that exists is supposed to allow them the chance to graciously step down. But unfortunately, no one's taking that opportunity, so we have to just rein it in. Like, we've given them the chance to, like, do it the normal way. Now it's time for us to force their hand. Like, this is coming to attention for a lot of reasons. Like, I mean, obviously, there's just been so many Democratic politicians that have died in office recently. Dianne Feinstein, Raul Grijalva, fucking, the Sylvester Turner, fucking, like, a lot of Democrats recently have died in their congressional tenure recently. And Feinstein is egregious for a number of reasons, because this is the big thing you need to understand about Dianne Feinstein. Feinstein was not going to retire. She was not going to retire. They literally, this is like a thing you just have to look into. Like, Dianne Feinstein was not going to retire. She was actually planning on running for re-election that year. And then she died. And she had to be, she died after her handlers literally had to force her to not run for re-election. Literally, what happened is that they told the press, she's not running for re-election. And then they went to Feinstein and said, hey, Feinstein, are you running for re-election? And she said, yes, I am running for re-election. But your handler told us that you're not running for re-election. She's like, oh, well, I guess it's for the best anyways. It's like, she didn't fucking know that she was retiring. That's how bad it gets. That they're literally telling these octogenarian losers who fucking can't even think clearly that they're retiring, even though they're just not there anymore. And what's worse is, a lot of people really are, one of the big things that a lot of people see as, a thing that woke up a lot of politicians to this fact was Joe Biden. Joe Biden's, massive, oh fuck moment, where he was, clearly not cognitively there during the debate with Trump, just made a lot of, because, you notice, if you go to the Wikipedia page, look at a lot of Democrats who are retiring. Pelosi's retiring, Hoyer's retiring, Schachowski retired, Eleanor Holmes Norton retired, Bonnie Watson Coleman retired. A lot of these guys retired. A lot of them are older Democrats that did retire. But the thing is, there are still many old ass Democrats that haven't retired and are running for re-election. John Garamendi is almost 81. Emmanuel Cleaver is 81. Doris Matsui, 81. Rosa DeLario, 82. Frederica Wilson, 83. Jim Clyburn, 85, almost 86. And Maxine Waters, 87, almost 88. I mean, these could be slightly older, but, you're seeing, a lot of them are still in office and still planning on running for office again, even though, again, for similar other people, like Eleanor Holmes Norton, she's 88, and she made the decision, hey, I think I'm a little too old for this, I'm going to retire. Meanwhile, another one is like, no, I think I'm old, I can continue. But this is another thing I noticed, especially with, the recent one. A lot of people are noticing this trend. How a lot of the people who are running for re-election who are old as fuck and maintain they need to stay in office. I think one people keep bringing up is Benny Thompson. I remember seeing a tweet of something where someone literally claimed that Benny Thompson said that he wants to die in office, and it's like, I can't find it, but I remember reading something like that. But it's like, yeah, like, notice it. Of those Democrats I listed, I think, if I remember correctly, yeah, 4 of them are black. 4 of them are black. Now, there's a systemic reason why many of them feel like they need to run for re-election continuously. Because a lot of them believe that they are like the black radical, or like the black like representative. They are the only ones who can represent their like group, like their race or their people or whatever. Like that is the belief system. Except the big problem is a lot of them are holding their they're holding like black people back. That's what's happening, because they refuse to let go of power and allow for the new generation of black radicals to rise. One very prominent example is John Conyers. John Conyers, he was once the young black radical being elected in the 1960s. He did not leave office until 2017. He stayed in office for 52 years, and he only got out of office because of extenuating circumstances. If he died 2 years later. He would have died in office if he was allowed to do so. Like, and you could say, like, well, wasn't John Conyers good? Sometimes he was, sometimes he wasn't. It's not even a matter of whether or not they're good or not. It's the matter of the fact that they're still in office. We do not need kings. We do not need kings. These are not people that will get a subsidized paycheck until they die. That's not how it works. If you want to be a subsidized paycheck, just like increase funding to the homeless, or increase funding to the fucking like old people, and you guys can take that funding as you want. But again, if you guys aren't going to like actually like graciously retire, then unfortunately we're just gonna have to make it so that they don't have to. Term limits are the key. Anyways, with that out of the way, let us move on to the main topic of this video. Our next pink tide election. We're going to be covering the 2026 presidential election of Colombia. Now, I have covered a lot of the political drama in the previous Colombia. Like, this is one of those ones that's going to be a repeat. This is going to be a repeat one, because I covered a lot of this stuff in I covered like the pretext in a previous Colombian election video. Again, the previous one. I covered the previous presidential election in Colombia. I also made a separate podcast that was going about like a protest movement that was going on in Colombia at the time, just because I needed a slot to fill, I guess. It's probably not good. You can check those out if you want. Like I said, I guess the Colombian election video was probably better than the protest one. But in order to make sure that things are good, I'm going to at least try my best to give you guys a brief TLDR. And by brief, I mean we're going to start all the way back in 1949. But okay. In 1949, there was a left-leaning politician named Jorge Eliezer Gaitan who was poised to run for president that year, and was actually very much poised to win. Like, everybody expected that he was going to run and he was going to win. He got assassinated, which was, yeah, sad. And what ended up happening is that the city of Bogota led a riot that would become to be known as the Bogotazo, which would in turn become a civil war called La Violencia. And during that time, there was a general named Gustavo Rojas Pinilla who couped the government, and then a junta took charge until they were couped in 1957, which would bring back civilian rule in 1958. However, the massive violence that was going on in the country at the time led to massive social inequality, which continued up to the 1960s, leading to a group called the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, or FARC, to take up arms against the Colombian government in 1964, feeling that they were still not meeting the demands of the people, which led to another civil war. The ensuing instability from that conflict would have the consequence of the rise of the Colombian drug trade, most famously through the rise of drug lord Pablo Escobar, who served a brief term in the Colombian Congress while this was going on, which in turn led to an obvious back and forth between everyone. The presidents at the time say, we must rein in these radicals and narco-terrorists. They use that example to push harder against the people who are slightly left of center, and which would lead to FARC to get a lot more power, which would then circular back to, oh, these radicals are getting more powerful, so we got to do more to stop them. And, again, it's the circular cycle of violence in Latin America that was caused by the government of Latin American countries, usually at the behest of the United States. And in 2002, Colombia would elect a man by the name of Alvaro Uribe Vélez, who would continue these harsh on crime policies and pretend that things were different. And actively makes things worse to the point where he actually floats the idea of maybe him becoming a dictator. And by dictator, I mean basically what he did was that Colombian presidents used to have a 1-term limit, and then he said, hey, how about we do 2 terms? It's like, okay, let's do 2 terms. And then he's like, maybe we could do a 3rd term? And like, okay, now you're pushing it. So then after he leaves, they go, okay, back to 1 term. And afterwards, a man by the name of Juan Manuel Santos gets elected. And while he's just a boring old liberal, he does manage to work out a peace deal with FARC. And it's actually a somewhat good deal. It's actually a pretty good deal. So yeah, give him a round of applause. He actually did a good thing. And when the deal with FARC was reached, some NGOs started pointing out some very sad numbers, pointing out how the war with FARC had cost Colombia $152 billion over the entirety of the conflict, with $46,500,000 being spent on the last week of the conflict alone, which was enough to feed 3 million Colombians and completely eradicate extreme poverty. But again, they chose to spend that money on killing people, and yeah, While there are still some groups out there that continue the war, but it's significantly smaller. FARC has basically been gone. There's some FARC dissidents still out there doing some things, and there's some other small groups that still do things, but again, it's mostly kaput. It's mostly finished. It's like COVID. The numbers are definitely down, but there's still some people who are going to die of COVID naturally. Again, it's just natural. It's a disease. It's going to cause people to die. Because the same way, there's still going to be some violence and some people are going to die because of the violence, which is sad, obviously. But the biggest part of it is over. Colombians look at him finally bringing peace to the nation and go, that's nice. Let's elect another fascist, shall we? And Ivan Duque was elected in 2018. And while he wasn't allowed to completely fuck things up, he still tried massively to fuck things up, leading to corruption and police brutality to rise in his administration, culminating in 2 protest movements against him, leading to Colombia to make its first shift to the left in a tumultuous election. And that's the pretext all the way up to that last election video. And now what happened next? And it was the election of Gustavo Petro. Naturally, Petro was a massive change for the Colombian political system. And that led to some issues, as the powers that be do not like it when you try to do good things. Gustavo Petro's biggest policy plank is his total peace plan, which is a very simple thing. Before you start massacring people protesting the government for being evil militants, let's try to talk to them first and see if we can address those concerns that led to them to protest in the first place. That mentality would kind of follow Petro throughout the remainder of his presidency and throughout the rest of his philosophy. Hey, land insecurity is an issue that leads to crime? Why not do some land redistribution? Hey, our workforce is being overworked and underpaid, which leads to people to seek not good ways to make quick money? Why not cut hours and raise wages? Hey, the illegal drug trade is a major reason why these gangs are so powerful? Well, let's start looking into offering safe and legal alternatives that cut into their primary moneymaker. People think their president isn't listening to them? Well, let's make a law that literally gives them the ability to directly vote on some ideas. Oh wait, that last one got completely wiped? Okay. Petro would also become the ire of the then incoming Trump administration, as Petro would be critical of Israel committing a genocide and the USA doing its inhumane treatment of immigrants. And Trump tried to bully Petro into submission, demanding that Petro take the deportation flights that literally treated immigrants like slaves being sent to America, and Petro simply told Trump that he would take them if they were, quote, in civilian planes without being treated like criminals. To which Trump would respond by saying no and threatening a 25 to 50% tariff on all Colombian goods, leading to Gustavo Petro to just fucking laugh in his face, and Trump actually conceded to his demands. And Trump, being the rational, clear-headed president he is, had the DEA label Petro as a priority target and threatens that he won't be in power much longer, especially in the wake of the Venezuelan operation. Even to the point where currently they're in a conflict with Ecuador. There's actually apparently a military conflict with Ecuador on Colombia right now, because the claim is they're going after the quote-unquote narcos. That's one of the big claims. But what's fucking amazing is that Gustavo Petro gives no fucks. Like, he just flat out gives no fucks and is just being a complete badass about this, going so far as to state that if it needs to come, he would take up arms again if he has to, because he used to be a member of a militant group called the 19th of April movement. Now, while all that was going on, there's actually one more element of Gustavo Petro's plans for the future of Colombia that is mostly revolving around internal party politics. In the last presidential election, Gustavo Petro was elected with the electoral pact of 29 left-wing movements, called the Historic Pact. Well, Gustavo Petro argued that with the approaching elections, it would be a good idea if all of these movements decided to keep the Historic Pact going, but not as a coalition. He actually argued that it would be best if all of these organizations were to dissolve and reform the Historic Pact as one political party. A similar strategy was chosen for the Chilean elections. While 5 of the parties in the coalition would agree wholeheartedly, a lot of them were not fans, and some of them were so turned off of the prospect that they decided to form an alternative political coalition called the Broad Unity Front. While they still intended to eventually coalesce with the Historic Pact, they wanted to express their critique with the idea by, just saying we don't want to give up our autonomy. And speaking of, that was put to the test with the upcoming, with the legislative election, because there are legislative elections earlier in the year than the presidential election, and they serve as a bit of a teaser for what happens. And in the legislative elections, which would lead to the Historic Pact getting 15 more seats in the Chamber of Deputies and 5 in the Senate, with the Unity Pact not doing so hot. What are the issues going into this election? Well, quite simply, I think most of the issues generally revolve around Gustavo Petro. It's kind of like a referendum on Gustavo Petro, but mostly focusing on his crime. Crime is the big one. Regards to drug trafficking and general security and crime. That's basically the big thing. That seems to be the big focus of this election. And now let's move on to the parties/candidates who are running in this race. There are currently 13 people running for president of Colombia. And I've decided that I'm going to cover them all. Why the heck not? Alright, first candidate in the race is a man by the name of Gustavo Matamoros, a retired general running with the Colombian Ecologist Party, an environmentalist political party, specifically to address the concerns of Afro-Colombians. Just to briefly clear this up before we move on to the next candidate, Gustavo is not Afro-Colombian himself, by the way. He's just advocating, that's just what the party is advocating for. I don't know if it's a situation where it's he just jumped on the party or whatever, but regardless. Next candidate. The next candidate in this race is Sandra McCollins Garvin, a lawyer and writer running under a significant group of citizens called either Iron Woman or Iron Lawyer. I'm seeing different sources that say either or. Now, if you haven't seen the last Colombian election video, then you might be wondering, what is a significant group of citizens? Well, an SGC is basically an independent candidacy. Basically, how it works in Colombia is that if you want to run as an independent candidate, you basically get a bunch of signatures and you get to run with your own little label. Even if you're not officially a political party, you can run under your own label. You can transition this into a political party if you want, but you can it's basically just labeling It's basically just giving you a partisan label when you're not partisan. Due to that fact, her ideology is not necessarily clear at first, but when you check her website, you're seeing generic policies like blockchain, decentralizing banking, critiquing Gustavo Petro's Total Peace program. So yeah, you can probably tell, she just leans to the right. The next candidate is a man by the name of Mauricio Lizcano, a former Colombian congressman running under the SGC of Stand Firm with Lizcano Colombianism. But Lizcano is also endorsed by a party called the Independent Social Alliance, which is a broadly center-left progressive party. And you can tell this guy's pretty interesting when he has a section of his Wikipedia page about controversies, particularly Spanish Wikipedia. Ooh, interesting. 3 things reaching my attention. One is when he was the president of the Senate, he was able to cancel a TV show that was going to publish an expose on some shady dealings that he did to get a property. 2 is when he was accused of pressuring officials in a Colombian social program for political gain, and currently he is under the investigation of sexual assault. So yeah, very interesting development coming from the so-called center-left guy. The next candidate in the race is Carlos Eduardo Caicedo, a lawyer and governor of Magdalena, who is running under a political party called the Citizen Force, a progressive center-left party. Not much of note for him there. The next candidate is a candidate by the name of Luis Gilberto, a former cabinet member and failed president/vice presidential candidate last cycle. He is running under the SGC. I am Luis Gilberto. Phew, glad we cleared that up. You could tell already by a bunch of the SGCs, it's basically just self-aggrandizing, stuff about the politician, apparently. It's weird, they don't have to be, but I guess this just means that they just don't want these to become actual political parties. Last time, Rodolfo Hernandez Suarez, he actually did, when he made his, SGC, he formed it, he called it, the League of Anti-Corruption Governors, and, they were they actually did do he actually intended to make it an actual political force after beyond his beyond him. But the thing is, as I mentioned before, Luis Gilberto, he has been at least somewhat prominent in Colombian politics since the last election. So I do know a little bit about his ideology, just to give you a bit of an idea where he stands. Just to give a brief record, let's just go briefly over his previous runs for office. He tried to run as an independent last time and failed. I guess he didn't get enough signatures or whatever. He then became the vice presidential candidate to a centrist candidate, and then endorsed Gustavo Petro in round 2 and joined his administration as a member of a center-left party. So you can probably tell, he's a centrist but leans a little bit to the left, just a little bit, not too much. The next candidate is a man by the name of Roy Barreras, the former president of the Senate, running under a political party called The Force, a social democratic and post-capitalist party. I'm just going by what the party calls itself, which is broadly seen as the prime voice for leftists who disagreed with Petro's electoral strategy. The plan was at one point for the Unity Front to run an alternative and/or united front. That was literally the plan. They wanted to run basically what they wanted to do for the primaries was that a lot of the candidates, there were very few, there were only 2 parties that really had infrastructure to run primaries, and that was the Historic Pact and one of the right-wing parties. But there was a plan to, I guess there actually was some other smaller groups, but the plan was they were going to run a bigger left-wing candidacy option, but it just didn't pan out. But one of the big things that makes Roy notable for his, Roy really is trying to run on the fact that, I just don't, it's not that I don't like Petro and I'm not left-wing, it's purely just because I don't like this specific strategy. To the point where he made an AI campaign ad that basically reassured him that him and Petro basically agree on everything. It's just this one small area of strategy that they disagreed on. The next candidate in the race is a woman by the name of Claudia Lopez Hernandez, a former senator and former mayor of Bogota, running under the SGC with Claudia Unstoppable. But during her tenure as senator, she was affiliated with the Green Alliance, which is just a broadly liberal environmentalist party. Nothing really too novel. You're kind of getting the idea of where they all stand on the ideological spectrum. The next candidate in the race is a man by the name of Santiago Botero, an agricultural engineer who was running with the SGC called break the system. And based on that, the colors, which are black and white, and the symbol of the party, or I guess just his campaign logo, which is two hammers next to each other, I immediately had in my mind right-wing populist. So I did some digging to get a little bit more of his platform. Okay, so first I went to his Twitter and found out that he follows Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, Felipe Calderon, Leavitt, alongside Dream and Mr. Beast. Going to his website, his platform is labeled Justicia de Dios, Justice of God, with an image on his website being a shield with a red iron cross, and his biggest piece of agenda, outside of general anti-corruption, is something that he calls the Templar Proposal, which is a new police force that are modeled after the Knights of Templar. Yeah, that's definitely a great sign. The next candidate is a man by the name of Sergio Fajardo, who was the third place finisher last presidential race, running under the Dignity and Commitment Party, a centrist third-way political party. This was the guy that Luis Gilberto was the vice presidential nominee of. The next candidate of the race is Paloma Valencia, who is a senator running with the Democratic Center Party, a right-wing party that is modeled after the administration of Alvaro Uribe, the authoritarian conservative party guy, the conservative authoritarian guy that I mentioned prior, who has a lot of very bad policies that has led to him to get into a lot of trouble. And again, I'm gonna go a bit more in depth on what he did here, because I just want you to understand this is the man that they are choosing to idolize. So he has done things, here's some of the things that he has done that has gotten him into actual legal trouble. 1, 2 massacres that happened when he was governor of a state. 2, he bribed a member of Congress to vote for a bill that he could run for a second term. 3, he bribed witnesses to prevent him from being implicated in the drug trade. 4, he was fighting for a third term that was, again, seen as very controversial. But 5 is the absolute worst thing that I can even remotely say that he did. And the fact that, again, these people are choosing to idolize the man who did this is just absolutely reprehensible. Now, it all has to do with his, war against FARC and other militant groups. Now, on the surface, it might come off as just generic, opposition to, that. Again, we all know that these kind of things lead to violence amongst the government, whatever. We all know that. But what happened specifically in Colombia was a controversy known as the false positive controversy. The context of this situation is that Uribe's administration announced that all soldiers who had been confirmed to kill leftist militants would be rewarded for their victories, and ones who did not meet a certain quota of leftist militants that were killed would be punished for not doing it, not living up to the quota that they set. And shockingly, this decision did not lead to good outcomes. Specifically, what ended up happening was that many soldiers in the military started luring poor and mentally disabled people away from civilization and murdered them to then claim that the people they killed were leftist militants in order to boost their numbers so that they could get promotions and other rewards. All because Uribe incentivized this fucking draconian thing. And an investigation was conducted to determine how many false positives were around, and it turns out upwards of 10,000 people were murdered for no reason. And just to give a little bit of an interesting tidbit about the Democratic Center Party, because this is one thing I think people might be concerned that if I don't mention it, and it's the fact that she actually wasn't the original choice for the party, kind of. See, originally, the candidate that was seen as the favorite to win the race was a candidate by the name of Miguel Uribe Turbe, no relation to Alvaro Uribe. But while holding a campaign event, Miguel was assassinated by a 15-year-old contract killer. And this situation was pretty tragic. So tragic that his dad decided to launch a presidential bid to continue his son's legacy. That man being Miguel Uribe Londoño, a lawyer and former senator and son-in-law to former President Julio Cesar Turbe Ayala. Despite attempting to get the nomination of the Democratic Center Party, after losing the nomination, he is now running with the Colombian Democratic Party, a center-left party advocating for the rights of Afro-Colombians. And even though he didn't really, this guy is, this guy is not, fucking, relevant at all. I only included him at the end because I had to mention Miguel Uribe. The next candidate is a man by the name of Abelardo de la Esperia, a lawyer who is running under the Defenders of the Homeland Coalition, which is basically in Colombia. What ended up happening is that there was a party called the Colombian Conservative Party, and they were originally the right wing, and then the Democratic Center Party came along, and they became, the right wing opposition to them. And this group is meant to be for the people who think that the Democratic Center Party is too moderate. It has a few parties in this group: the Radical Change Party, a center-right party; the Colombia Justa Libres Party, a far-right evangelical party; Creemos Colombia, a socially conservative party that wanted to do this shtick last time; and the National Salvation Movement, a far-right party formed by a conservative martyr named Alvaro Gomez Hurtado. And shockingly, Abelardo's been referred to many names, including but not limited to Colombian Bukele, and it's so this is fucking terrible. But Abelardo has also faced an issue over his abuse of legal tactics to censor people, with it being found out that after a journalist wrote about his relationship with Alex Saab, a businessman accused of laundering money on behalf of the government of Venezuela. It was very weird. It was a very weird day. Literally, Alexander Saab was very interesting because he was actually very connected to a lot of right-wing influencers, and they were demanding his freedom, but also Venezuela was also demanding his freedom. And when these journalists started pointing that out, Abelardo threatened legal action against them, claiming slander and libel. And this led to the journalists to start looking into these slander and libel accusations, and it turns out that Abelardo had actually submitted 109 cases of slander and libel over his entire career, most of them being dismissed outright because these are just completely BS, whatever. But last, and certainly not least, we have Ivan Cepeda, a senator running with the Historic Pact. Technically, he's a member of another political party and is running with a broader alliance of left-wing parties, but due to the previous drama, he's basically just running with the Historic Pact. It's, of course, a socialist political party with a tradition in the Colombian left-wing movements, even the so-called radical militants in Colombia. And Cepeda and his family are actually very notable for their roots in the Colombian left. Ivan's dad, Manuel Cepeda Vargas, was a senator affiliated with a group called the Patriotic Union and the Communist Party of Colombia, until he was assassinated by paramilitaries that were associated with the Colombian army. And after that assassination, Ivan would start a foundation in his dad's honor, which would then begin to lead the charge to help all victims of people who suffered that fate due to the Colombian War, leading him to face death threats of his own. Nevertheless, Ivan kept pushing, even managing to take his case to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, who ruled in his favor, and after receiving the compensation for his suffering, he would decide to donate all of it to a foundation to continue pushing the issue for more than just him. And when Ivan began entering electoral politics, he continued being a thorn in the establishment's side. Remember the case I mentioned before with Uribe bribing witnesses to get him not imprisoned for his role in the drug trade? Want to take a wild guess who was leading the charge on that front? And with that out of the way, let's get into the polling. Now, despite what the West wants you to think, Petro and Cepeda are pretty popular. Like, I mean, I just gotta be real. Like, it's actually really interesting just how popular they are. Like, I mean, I'm just gonna read the polls right here. All right, so all of these are Cepeda's numbers: 35%, 35.5%, 35.7%, 35.5%, 35%, 34.5%, 37.5%, 40.9%, and 37.8%. Now, again, these are all pretty decent leads. And they're all actually pretty decent leads over the next running candidate, Abelardo. You know, in these races, they have, and these coinciding polls have 26.8, 26.8, 26.3, 21, 15.4, 20.2, 15.6, 27.2. There were a couple of other candidates that kind of like came here and there that were like kind of close-ish to the election results. Like, I mean, there was a candidate, I didn't mention her name is Clara Lopez, but she dropped out of the race and endorsed Cepeda. She was interesting because she was also on the Freedom Flotilla, not the Freedom Flotilla, the Nuestra Flotilla for Cuba. But Valencia, she's also at least pretty close to third. Like, I mean, I think there's one poll that has Cepeda and her, like Cepeda like is second place to her in one poll, which was like March 10th. But again, broadly, Cepeda is winning the polls. Now, in Colombia, they have a 2-round system. If you don't get over 50% in the first round, then you go to a second round. And the question then becomes, okay, what about a head-on-head election? Well, let's take a look at some of the results for a possible head-on-head election, shall we? First, there's Fajardo v. Valencia, which is, I guess, a round that they have. And 2 polls go to Valencia, 1 poll goes to Fajardo. Let's see. Fajardo versus Abelardo. Okay, let's see about that. Abelardo very clearly wins all but one of them. All right. Why don't we throw a curveball? How about we do Roy Barreras versus Abelardo? Just for fun. 32 for Abelardo to 14 for Roy. Pretty good results, shall we say? Now let's actually go to the actually somewhat realistic fucking polls, shall we? With Cepeda in the final results. So Cepeda versus Fajardo. Again, Cepeda wins all but one of them. All right. Cepeda versus Valencia. Okay, Valencia actually does somewhat good. She wins 3 polls over Cepeda's like many others. And in the most realistic scenario, Ivan Cepeda versus Abelardo. Abelardo wins 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 polls, and Cepeda wins literally all the others. Let's just count them, shall we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14. I will say the most recent poll does have Abelardo winning. But again, the overall results do show that Cepeda probably has a better chance than we give it credit for. Granted, there is one more thing we need to take into consideration. And that is the fact that the United States is actively going to try and rig this election. We all know this. They rigged the fucking election in Honduras. The U.S. will actively try to rig this election, especially since, Gustavo Petro is very much not aligned with Trump and very anti-Trump. So it's a big factor that it's going to probably happen. And we'll have to wait and see how things go in that regard. But the conclusion support is probably very obvious. Viva Petro, viva Cepeda, viva Pacto Histórico. This was pretty easy ever since he got fucking, announced as the candidates. That was basically my one thing. Whoever was the historic pact candidate, I'm going with them. Some places I wait, some I don't. So, yeah, this is one I didn't wait. Alright, thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell to notify a future video when it comes out. And if you want more content from me, consider supporting me on Patreon.